Speaker Pro Tem Benavidez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I want to take a minute to recognize someone from Colorado, and I asked some members of some of the caucuses to join us. There was a story in Saturday's newspaper about this woman. And so if I could have your attention, this is about the contributions of an unsung hero in our community. I could have done this last week during Black History Month, but this hero is Black and she is a woman. And so I think today is also fitting because it's the first day of Women's History Month. Zipporah Parks Hammond, or Mrs. Hammond, as I knew her, would have been 97 years old today. She passed on in 2011. In 1946, Mrs. Hammond became the first Black woman to receive a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Colorado School of Nursing. She was the only African American student in her class of 30 nursing students. But she was the only student who was barred from living on campus. She was the only student who was barred from studying with the other students. And she was the only student barred from any hands-on training in her field. But despite these obstacles, she proved more than capable of meeting the high standards of the nursing school. After graduating at age 22, Mrs. Hammond joined the Women's Cadet Nurses Corps. She was the only Black student nurse out of 1,600 who trained in Colorado to serve and care for the Army's Black troops. So she was also a veteran. Later, she was recruited to be the chief surgical nurse at the Tuskegee Institute in Alabama. She was asked to go there to care for children suffering from polio. Some of you may not know about polio and maybe didn't have to get the shot like me and some of the other members here did. But Black children who had polio could not receive treatment at the other hospitals. So it was important to have a nurse that could treat them. Mrs. Hammond later contracted tuberculosis and had to return to Denver, and she got cared for 2 years at the National Jewish Hospital. But in 1951, Mrs. Hammond obtained her medical records librarian certification and became Colorado's first Black director of medical records at what is now Presbyterian St. Luke's Hospital. Mrs. Hammond was raising her family, but still found time to volunteer for 17 years at the Denver Public Library, documenting photographs and articles that preserved Black history in Colorado. She also donated thousands of dollars on her modest income to more than 24 charities, including The Gathering Place, that serves women, children, and transgender individuals experiencing poverty and homelessness. I met Mrs. Hammond many years ago through her sons, Stephen and Daryl, who were classmates of ours, of me and my siblings at Manual High School. Her children will be submitting a nomination for her entry into the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame later this year. And I will be preparing a letter of support for her nomination. And I will ask all of you as members, particularly the Latino, Black, Women's, and Veterans caucuses, to join me in that nomination letter of support. You know, I didn't know these things about Mrs. Hammond until recently, because true heroes are not singing their own praises. When Mrs. Hammond received the Living Legend Award in 2009 by her peers of Black women, they wrote, and I thought this was important for all of us, they wrote, "You make us walk taller, smile wider, dream bigger. You change the world. with fierce determination, effortless style, unshakable grace. Thank you, Mrs. Hammond, for showing us how to fly by flying. I spoke to her son yesterday, and they couldn't be here. Her son Steve lives in Virginia, is retired and lives in Virginia. Her son Daryl and his family live in Longmont. So members, please join me in a round of applause for well, before I do that, I know other members wanted to say something. So.
Representative Harrod.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'll be brief. I just want to thank my colleague from Adams County for bringing this to the chamber and to bringing it to the Black Caucus members. Specifically, Ms. Hammond is a jewel and continues to be a jewel and a legend in Northeast Denver. We do sing her praises and we do stand on her shoulders. She has countlessly given back to the community, not only in the work that she's done mentoring young people, but in her legacy to show us how we can be and how we can achieve. I also want to acknowledge the fact that my alma mater, CU Boulder, has had a very interesting history when it comes to race, a troublesome history. And they are going through a process of acknowledging some of the things that they have done wrong, including not allowing Mrs. Hammond to walk across the stage to get her degree, and others. And so I want to acknowledge and thank the University of Colorado for taking this step forward, for also working to increase the number of Black physicians as well through a scholarship named in the honor of our first Black doctor who has graduated from there. And I look forward to hearing conversations from other universities who are doing the really tough work as well. I've heard some great things happening across the state, and I look forward to members bringing that to the chamber as well. So thank you, Representative Benavidez, for bringing this forward. On behalf of the Black Caucus, we definitely appreciate it. We appreciate you, and we will definitely be a sign-on on that letter.
Thank you. Representative Benavidez.
Members, with that, please join me in a round of applause for the contributions of Zipporah Hammond. Thank you, members.